just looking at my little garlic patch. The end here by greenhouses. And I've got a little garlic scape coming up. Little garlic scapes. Pretty. Hey folks! We have an overcast morning. It's supposed to kind of clear up and the sun's supposed to come out, but we've had a lot of hot weather for us. We got up to 80 whole degrees, 80 Fahrenheit. So this morning I am going to cut, this is the first bed that I cut of lettuce. I'm going to be cutting in this bed. I'm going to cut just 2 of the 4 rows because I'm kind of consistently getting 6 pounds of baby chard out of this whole bed. I'm still waiting for my little guys, my 4 little rows in this partial bed that I hand seeded. I cut the baby chard yesterday so that this new 4 rows that I planted in between are kind of on the same footing now as the rest of the guys. I'm waiting for them to grow, get mature, so I may end up getting more out of this bed than 6 pounds, but that means if I'm doing 1 chard to lettuce, then I need to get just 12 pounds, and that's about 2 rows of my 40-foot beds of lettuce. So that's what I'm going to do this morning. I've got my bug hat on because there's a little bit of no-see-em action out here. And yeah, this hot weather, everything is just going gangbusters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fiddle around with, you know, lettuce mix today, but I'm not going to run you through that again. This week, I am going to do a big reveal of my basil and cucumbers and talk about how my basil and cucumber starts my second batch, you know, didn't do so great, and talk about why. But anyway, here I go, harvesting lettuce. Yeah, this second planting of lettuce is over the top, ready to harvest. I think these ones on the east side are bigger than these over here, this couple rows over here, so I'm gonna harvest these. And I don't know if this next planting is gonna be quite ready for next week, so I'll probably go ahead and get this last 2 rows next week. Kind of Okay, so I just weighed my baby chard again, and I must have missed adding in a batch because I actually have 8 pounds of baby chard, so I need 16 pounds of lettuce. So I should be able to get that out of these 2 rows. Hey guys!
Snakes!
This is my friend Peter, and he brought me garlic scapes.
Oh.
Yeah, garlic scapes. He lives on the south end of Wrangell Island. You could only get up to the town by boat through going up Zamovia Strait.
Boat and bike.
And so then he biked the scapes over here, and then I'm going to sell them with my lettuce and kale and chard and stuff this week. Say hi, Peter!
Hi, Peter!
So I've been growing my basil starts and my cilantro and dill in here. Basil's all the way in the back, and they're not doing so great. This is my cilantro. Germination is not that great. Sometimes the little guys will try and come up, and then they might just end up dying off. Dill germination wasn't that great either, but it came up. Needs to be farther away from the light. It's turning like purple or whatever. My basil, super spotty germination. Sometimes they'll start coming up and then they don't really make it. I'm allowing these double, you know, like I put a couple, 2-3 seeds in, and I'm just letting them grow together in hopes of being able to use both of the plants. But yeah, there definitely is something wrong with the soil that I'm starting these in. I've got a flat of basil germinating up here at the house. This is the second batch I planted for the second bed out there in the greenhouse. And there are so many of these soil blocks that are showing nothing. And I had the same problem with the second planting of cucumbers. And I'm starting to wonder, like, is there something wrong with this second batch of soil mix that I made or something? Oh, what is the deal? What is the deal this time around? Dudes, I'm having a problem with my cucumber germination. Okay, folks, here's the deal with the cucumber and basil starts. So I don't know if you remember in earlier videos, way back in the early spring or late winter, whenever it was, I had some transplant soil mix left over from last year that I started using for this year's starts. But I also was making some new transplant soil mix. Some of it I added fertilizer to, and some of it I didn't, because the new stuff was a little bit damp. The materials were a little bit damp, so I didn't want to just throw in this fertilizer and have it get all mildewy and gross, right? So I thought, okay, I'll use a little bit probably of the new stuff this year. I'll put some sort of fertilizer in it. And I marked the boxes. The ones that had fertilizer in it says with fertilizer. And the ones that don't say that don't have any fertilizer in them. So if you can guess, the box that I pulled for these latest starts had no fertilizer in it. So stuff is kind of trying to germinate and there's nothing for it to grow in because, you know, the soil I'm using to make that, it just has nothing in it. So let me show you. Alrighty, so underneath this tarp, I have a bunch of boxes of transplant soil mix, and it just says soil mix 2021. And over here, I had a mix of boxes, you know, so on the bottom there were some that said 2021 soil mix and some on the top that said with fertilizer. Well, I happened to grab a box and I just checked it. Soil mix 2021. So this has no fertilizer in it. This is what I used. So that's what my poor little starts have been trying to grow in. Anyway, so I'm gonna grab this box and later on today I'm gonna start some cucumbers, basil, lettuce, and see if I can't get something out of them this year. So by grabbing the wrong box and not paying attention like I do so many times, I have probably lost like a bunch of money that I could have made on cucumbers and basil. So all I have is one bed of cucumbers, one bed of basil, and that's it. I'll go over and show you how those guys are doing. These days of sunshine that we've been getting, everything is just growing like crazy. But this is cucumber greenhouse. This is basil greenhouse. Let's go take a look at the cucumbers first. I was just sitting here watering the orach, the little orach that's still coming up over here. And this is the orach. First planting of orach here, second planting behind it. And as you can see, all the little cucumbers, these are the last ones the last two that I put out and the ones that went in before that, which they're going to need to be strung up here. They're going to need something to climb up pretty soon. The carrots back here are kind of hanging over. I keep having to push them back and they're kind of shading things out. But now these three right here were part of the first batch that were extras that got planted out. They all survived. This guy's got little cucumbers growing on him for scale. And these guys did as well. Some of them were looking pretty straggly, but we got some warm weather and they're kind of popping back. I've got one going on the other side here too. These are mini cucumbers. I think these would have been ready by next week. If I had had a full greenhouse of these, I would have been making some money, folks. Here's my sunflower and calendula plants. Hello. But yeah, so that's all the cucumbers I have for this year, folks. Oh my gosh. Let's wander over here and go into the basil greenhouse. Oh, and these guys were just struggling for like a month. They just sat and did nothing. I think it's mostly the cold nights. They just don't like it. And I've got all this, but yeah, they're doing really nice. I might actually be able to pick some next week. We'll see. I don't want them to get too tall. I like to cut their centers and have them start kind of branching out. But yeah, I've got kind of like the carrots in the other greenhouse. I've got this Italian kale that like will bend over and start shading everything out. And since I've got so much kale out in the garden, I think I'm just I had started cutting these back, you know, at the end here to give these guys more light. And then I'm going to cut the rest of these, I think, today. But look at this, folks. My sugar snap peas. My sugar snap peas are in here. I don't know how they're going to like this heat, but I mean, we have had a couple of cool days, but they're all kind of running up each of the ribs. So yeah, I'm going to cut this kale. Got all the kale cut along here. And so those guys, the sun actually comes all, because this time of year, it just kind of goes in a big circle, comes all the way around back here. So even though this is kind of on the north end, I mean, it is sucking nutrients probably from the soil, but also, you know, just a little bit of shading back here. But, you know, here's my pile of kale. I've got this scarlet kale that struggled to start this, you know, this year. And I've got it planted over here on the north side of this bed, which was supposed to be my basil bed already planted. And then I've got some volunteer orach that this is what it looks like when it gets really big. Yeah, so this week in harvesting selling, I just grabbed, you know, the two rows back here of red and green Salanova lettuce. I had 8 pounds from my baby chard patch here, and I had 8 ounces of orach. And so I mixed that together, and I ended up with 42 approximately 8-ounce bags and 3 pounds of lettuce for the restaurant. I had one customer that wanted 12 bags of lettuce mix, so that really boosted my sales. So then I ended up with 10 extra bags. I stopped by the senior center, but they weren't open, probably because of 4th of July activities are going on already. Yeah, because what I've just been doing is just making up the lettuce mix. I'm just like, as much baby chard as I have, I make that much lettuce mix, and I figure whatever is left over, I'll try and get to the senior center. And plus, you know, we have family visiting and stuff. So, yeah, that's what's going on with that. I will talk in more detail. We're still fiddling around with the greens bubbler and stuff, and I'm kind of doing some new stuff with my delivery and whatever this year. So I'll talk about that in way more detail in a future video when that's all kind of settled out. I would say that this lettuce in this first bed that I cut is ready to harvest again. Now I cut these ones the next week, and they're not quite ready. And these are the 2 rows that I cut this week. I'll have to calculate and find out how many weeks it took for this to grow back. I think it's been 3. Looking at last year's planting of basil and cucumbers, I've got days to maturity 73 and 68, which gives me like, okay, 2 months. If I were to plant now, start, you know, some cucumbers and basil, I've got July, August, and I could plant them in September, which usually September things are not growing that great here. You know, we're not getting that much light and it's getting a little bit colder. But I think it's worth starting just to see. So I don't think I've shown you guys my potato patch. I don't even know if I showed it to you guys when it was germinating, but it's all fluffy now. Sitting here on my experimental Typar geotextile business. Potatoes! Potatoes! Potatoes!